10 after 11, and if you would be sitting in the studio right now, I think you'd be rolling over with laughter. I have two producers in the production booth, and they're trying to sign language me about the instructions, and I ain't understanding them. So, guys, please type out the information for me so I can understand what are you wanting me to do. But we'll get over those hurdles. It's funny, but we will get over all of those hurdles. Let's go straight to Yolanda. She's been very, very patient, and we do need to discuss something pretty important, and that, of course, is sleep hygiene. A very good morning to you, Yolanda. Welcome to the program, and thank you for your patience.
No problem at all. I'm at that age where technology is not always my friend. And I understand the frustrations of it.
Okay, I'm in the same boat. Might I add, I'm in the same boat, but I guess we do need to get on top of this so that the youngsters don't overtake us. But be that as it may, Yolandi, this is a serious issue, isn't it? A sleep consultancy. Now, how did you find yourself in this space? What did you study for to be able to be doing this type of work? And sleep hygiene or good sleeping habits are really crucial, because if you don't have good sleep, if you're a person who obviously has trouble with having a really good night's sleep, you're not going to perform optimally the next day, whether it's at school or in the workplace. So this is really a very important matter.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we don't realize how much time we actually spend sleeping. And often we're looking at what we're doing during the day and whatever, but what's happening at night can have a very big impact how we perform, like you said, during the day. But yes, I myself actually, I was not sleeping because of my children. And that's how I got to realize how important it is. And that's how I got to the business itself as well. So Good Night specializes actually in children's sleep. So we specifically help and support parents to create sleep hygiene for children. But this translates into adults most definitely as well.
All right. You mentioned a colleague of yours by the name of Sarah, and you
Yes.
did indicate that she also has been doing a lot of work around sleep patterns, disrupted probably sleep patterns with Muslim kids in the month of Ramadan. And I have said to you that I'm very excited to talk with her on another show. That is going to happen. But for the purposes of this show, let's talk about sleep hygiene as far as adults is concerned. Just going back to my initial question, what is your, apart from the subject matter that we are discussing currently, what is your area of expertise that you have now found yourself in this space?
Okay, so actually, initially, my history starts with the fact that I actually studied marketing, to be honest. So my history is
Oh,
in business completely. And I did a nice segue when it came, like I said, where I was not sleeping. I did the course through Good Night through my previous business partner. But now at the moment, we stand at a place where we've created our own training program because we've helped over 10,000 clients sleep better already.
mhm.
And that's 7 years of experience. What we do is not medical. What sleep hygiene entails is only behavioral and environmental changes. So it's nothing medical that we do. So when it comes to medical sleep issues, we have partners that we refer to. Depending on what the situation is. So we only do sleep hygiene. And sleep hygiene, like I said, is those behavioral and environmental changes that need to happen to improve sleep. And you can better your sleep. And our job is to support families through that journey to better sleep.
So, Yolandi, how would people consult with you? I'm thinking post-COVID or even during COVID. That must have been a huge issue simply because people had lost their jobs, people out of work, they were depressed, there were mental health issues, and all of this obviously weighed down heavily on people. And obviously had a huge impact on people and their sleep patterns. So, how do you consult? Would it be online? And what are the issues that you uncovered during COVID? And how were you able to help those patients?
Yeah, so during COVID, interestingly enough, people spend a lot of time all of a sudden at home, and all of a sudden people realize how big of an issue sleep can be. Apparently, I don't know why all of a sudden it happened like that, but they did realize that. So I do feel we jumped to the occasion as well and helped a lot more clients, actually, but we changed completely. We are now fully online and operational online, hence also giving us the opportunity to help anyone, not just in South Africa but also internationally. So it does make a very big difference for us in that regard. But with regards to sleep patterns, most definitely, I think the biggest impact on sleep during COVID was stress related, that people just had, you had this feeling that you're not doing anything, but you were taking on so much more. And then as soon as COVID was a little bit relaxed and everyone started going back to the office, then it was a combination of that, doing those things that I had to do at home and doing the work stuff as well. And I think that was the biggest contributor of lack of sleep, and still is.
All right. What are the signs of poor sleep hygiene? And I know you also indicated that you found yourself in this space out of need. Necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
And that, and I think of a lot of family members as well who have little children, and I often hear the word sleep deprivation. And if they don't address those issues, they're not going to be effective parents, are they?
Yeah, no, definitely not. So the average adult needs about 7 hours of sleep. Once again, this is an average. Some people do get away with less sleep. Some people need a little bit more sleep. But on average, most adult needs around 7 hours of sleep. And if you go tally up your own sleep, you will quickly realize that it might not be on that. So to kind of find your own average in that regard is, if you need an alarm clock to wake up in the morning, and we all do, then you
I
most
don't.
probably are not. See, good job, Julie. But I mean, that's exactly it. And if you don't need that, it means that you are actually having an appropriate amount of sleep. My children, in their life, I have never woken them up in the morning. They have always woken up naturally by themselves on time, because they go to bed at an appropriate time. And that is what one of the biggest key things with sleep hygiene. We always implement all these things, or more easily implement these things with our children. And we know all these things. Have a bedtime and a bedtime routine that is at a similar time at night. Obviously, it's not going to be at 8 like your child. Children, on average, babies need 11 to 12 hours of nighttime sleep. Children at 5 years need about 10 to 11 hours of sleep. So obviously, you're not going to go to bed at 8 o'clock, but probably more closer to 10 o'clock. And that is the important things that you need, is that consistency, even over a weekend, to have a similar bedtime and a little bedtime routine as part of it.
Okay, there are issues around people who possibly travel a lot. Or I know COVID's put paid to a lot of those issues, but people who travel a lot from city to city or town to town, etc., having to sleep in different beds, for a large part of their lives. Um, what is your advice? And one of the reasons I hate going on holiday or even going away for a weekend is I always argue with my husband that we're going away for 3 days or 4 days. Two of those days is going to involve me getting used to that new bed.
For
And,
sure.
uh, you know, I'm going to be, you're saying that it's a getaway, but I'm going to be coming back from that getaway more exhausted than ever before.
And also, once again, I'm also that age where I now travel with my own pillows because I
Okay.
can't. I can't. I also take time, and that's also one of those things, to have a consistent sleep space, and it can have an impact. Luckily, some people are more like my husband has no problem sleeping anywhere. You could sleep on a crowded beach no problem. So it also depends on person to person. Some people are more like us, a little bit more susceptible to our surroundings. But those people who travel quite regularly, if you are more susceptible, try to choose. Often, if you go to the same place, to choose a similar place that you're always going to. Make sure that you have a traveling sleeping mask that you always sleep with. Those type of things can help to make it dark, because once again, that's an easy, simple sleep hygiene solution, is to have it as dark as possible. When you are sleeping, travel with your pillow. So have those sleep associations, those things that you require to sleep properly, have them as similar to home as possible. Take your pillow with, take your sleep mask with, and have your actual pajamas with you that you sleep with at home as well.
Okay,
And
so
those small things can make a big
all right.
difference.
So obviously, when you talk about small things, we're also talking about people who've had difficulty sleeping over the past so many months or past so many years, or it could be the COVID issue where you were very stressed out because you've lost your job, or a broken relationship, or whatever have you. During a time like that, you are going to have disrupted sleep. When does it come right? After a traumatic or event in your life, it's going to take a couple of months, and it differs from person to person. But how do you then get back into a healthy sleep routine?
And I mean, even during those times, especially during those difficult times and stressful times, is when you should prioritize sleep, because it's going to help you cope with the balance of that cortisol, melatonin, to help you cope with that a lot better as well. And during those times, it is, and especially like you now said, with traveling and all those things, often we start drinking a lot more, or we start eating a lot more unhealthy. We stop exercising during those stressful times, a lot more screen time, a lot more work. And those are all four things contributors to bad sleeping. You need to have quiet time, a build up towards your sleeping. So like I said, have a consistent bedtime and bedtime routine. Have that's at a similar time, a quiet time, free of screens. Don't read interesting books, read the boring books so that you fall asleep afterwards. um, because if you're going to get too excited, for me it's like sometimes I'm reading, then I'm like the opposite's happening, because I get really into the book. So
Right.
you should be reading something not too interesting, but try to avoid those screen times and have that meditative time, or quiet time, religious time during that build up to your bedtime, and not be working straight before you go to bed, not be eating too late, not be drinking something that's not appropriate before bedtime. Alcohol is a very big contributor to bad sleeping.
Okay,
It
so
makes you
our
fall asleep
community.
quickly, but your actual
Oh,
quality of sleep not
all
good.
right. Okay, the Muslim community don't
Yes,
consume
luckily
alcohol,
that's not
as
a
you
problem.
know. So obviously, the next worst thing or the next best thing to that would be coffee. We do know it's full of caffeine. That's going to create a problem as well. So, though I
And
do
that's
know
all the
people.
things that we
Yeah.
know. It's like we should limit those things. And coffee limited to the morning time. After 12 p.m., don't have any more of 12 a.m. Don't have any more coffee in the morning anymore as well. So, or in the afternoon anymore. So limit the amount of coffee and caffeine that you're taking in. And this is all the things. Exercise. Make time to exercise, because those are the things that contribute to sleeping better as well.
So, Yolandi, people who have been battling with sleeping for whatever reason. Maybe, as I've indicated earlier on, they've had trauma in their lives, they've lost a loved one, they're worried about their future prospects. Whatever the issue is, obviously, if you're a warrior, it's going to keep you awake. And you feel that you are now exhausted, you need some intervention. A lot of people go first to over-the-counter sleeping pills. What do you say to that? And also, how much time are they going to be spending with someone like yourself? If somebody believes that they've reached a point where they can't continue the way they are any longer, The sleeping pills are not helping either, or they're afraid it's going to make them dependent on those tablets. They then come to you. How much time do they spend with you online for them to get to that place of deep and sufficient sleep so that they can start feeling whole again?
So that does depend on most definitely what the issue is. If it's a medical intervention, something like sleep apnea or something like that, the prospects might take a little bit longer depending on when the problem is going to be solved. If it's something like insomnia, it could take even longer. In general, because we specialize, and there's a reason why I specialize only in children, it is because of medical interventions, especially with adults, become more prominent and it becomes beyond my scope. It's no longer a sleep hygiene issue by itself. Sleep in itself for children takes about 10 to 14 days to make a change. With adults, it's 21 to 30 days for the intervention to take effect and for it to take time. So you won't sleep overnight. It's going to be weeks before you properly start sleeping again. Once again, depending on what the issue is. If it's their medical issue, something like sleep apnea, it might take a lot longer. But it is of consistently having those things in place, like I said, between 21 and 30 days.
What are the signs and symptoms if somebody consults with you? What type of questions are you going to ask them? I'd say to you, I just find that I'm exhausted in the mornings, or I can't wake up without an alarm clock, or I tend to oversleep, or I'm very grumpy. Are those the type of things you're wanting to hear to give you an idea that this person, in fact, does have a problem with their sleep hygiene?
Yeah, so we ask, our questionnaire is 10 pages long,
Ooh.
where we are asking questions about routine and schedule during the day, eating habits and nutrition, the sleeping environment itself, the bedtime routine itself, all those and activities. And then there's also the medical side to it. If do you snore? Do you do this? Do you do that? Do you move your legs while you're sleeping? So it is a very comprehensive kind of questionnaire that we ask. And then we have a consultation of about an hour and a half. And then we help clients for 2 weeks to implement that plan as well.
Would you perhaps suggest people have power naps? Would that help them? Maybe they way too exhausted at night, and maybe during the day they have a 20-30 minute power nap. It's going to energize them. They're going to perform optimally.
Generally,
And
napping is not suggested with adults. It's not a good idea unless you've got jet lag or something like that. Generally, it's not advised to have naps. You should be making up, rather make your bedtime earlier. Don't be afraid to go to bed a little bit earlier if need be. But you want to work on regular patterns at night of sleeping. And power naps, yeah, it could completely move or sync out. Once again, better to speak to a qualified person depending on what your specific situation is.
okay, talk to us about circadian rhythms. I know this has to do with sleep and sleep patterns. And I also need to, at the same time, throw in there the issue around I've read somewhere that people who work night shift for X amount of years will never ever be able to make up for all of that lost sleep, because the sleep you get at night is very different to the sleep during the day. And the fact that you're a night shift worker, you have been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years, it actually takes about 5 or 10 years of your life.
It's incredible if you look at the research that's out there with regards to shift workers. Also, like even what do you call pilots and those type of people. It's a complete shift with regards to the circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm is our internal clock. It's everything that happens within the body on a 24-hour clock. And that's basically our sleeping is on those clocks. And it influences a lot of things, including a lot of the hormones that needs to happen, not only just for sleeping, but also for eating and that type of thing. So it is a circadian rhythm is a built-in clock, and it's based on nighttime, darkness, and light, daytime. So even in places where the what do you call it, sun goes down later and those things, that has an impact on your circadian rhythm. And that's why in recent years people have started actually sleeping less because of the invention of the light bulb. We now have the ability to create light a lot more, and that has an impact on our circadian rhythm. So that's why, once again, referring back to what I was saying, having a constant bedtime and bedtime routine, that's to create that natural circadian rhythm, so that your body knows now melatonin is coming. I need to sleep. Your body produces melatonin, because melatonin and cortisol also works like a seesaw during the day and the night. The more melatonin you produce during the night, the more cortisol, which gives you energy during the day to perform, you will have during the day. But it's also vice versa. The more cortisol you use and produce during the day, the more melatonin. So it's at a very delicate kind of balance during the day and night. And you want to work with the natural rhythm, not only of your body, but also within the day. And that's why sleep hygiene is referred to as behavioral and environmental interventions. And making it as dark as possible, if when you sleep, is important to create those circadian rhythms and produce melatonin.
What about when you over exercise or overdo it and you've really worked, you really pushed yourself very, very hard, and you are really very tired? I find that when I'm overtired, I don't sleep well at all. What exactly is happening there? What should
So
I be doing in a situation like that?
yeah, so when you obviously exercise, you're producing adrenaline and the good hormones that's coming, which is good for you. But if you're doing it too close to bedtime, your body doesn't have time. So you just have to make sure that you're creating that time, making time. But I mean, even if you're overdoing it, the problem is not always the hormones that will keep you awake. You can have a relaxing bath, but if your muscles are aching and you're uncomfortable, that could be waking up at night. But that's a temporary problem. When you continue to do it, it will get better again, luckily.
Okay. All right. You talk about keeping the bedroom, nice and dark. You need to, if there's darkness, is the time that you're going to be. It just calms you down, obviously, and you're
Yeah.
going to sleep. But I have news for you. Most people have TV sets in their bedrooms.
The TV sets have what we call blue light, and that inhibits the production of melatonin. Hence, why I mentioned it earlier, is you should actually limit screen time before bedtime. For children, we advise us 2 hours before bedtime that you should stop screen time. For adults, at least an hour before bedtime. It is difficult, but I mean, if you watch TV, like I sometimes watch my tablet and I sleep fine, it's fine. But if you're having sleep problems, this is something that you need to look at to see that you're limiting your screen time, because it inhibits the production of melatonin, which is going to wake you up instead of making you asleep. So you want to, and it also activates your brain while you're just
Absolutely.
passively sitting there. So you need to look at those things if you are having a problem falling asleep or staying asleep.
Okay, this might be, I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer this question, but a lot of people, or some people for that matter, suffer terribly from nightmares. What's that all about? Is it related to your diet? Is it related to all of the thoughts that you're allowing to kind of play in your mind before going to bed? How does one go to bed and get away from those horrible nightmares?
My husband always jokes to say that you have a guilty conscience when you have nightmares. No, I'm kidding. So in the end, nightmares are things that happen. So it is difficult to control those things, because it's nightmares happens in the subconscious mind. So it is limiting, once again, screen time, what you're watching, what you're exposing to. But the problem is, things like that is not, especially in a country like South Africa, it's not necessarily something that has happened to someone else, but is a real fear. Meditating, seeing a psychologist, things like that is what can help with nightmares. But it is better to see someone that's qualified in those type of things, like a qualified psychiatrist or psychologist.
Okay, what more do we need to know about sleep hygiene, proper sleep hygiene, and how do people get hold of you if they'd like to consult with you?
Okay, so once again, a proper, like I said, bedtime routine is very important. Creating an environment. If you're struggling with sleep or falling asleep, get rid of that TV in your bedroom rather. Create a space for sleep. Have a nice bed. Have a tranquil area. Have a bath or a shower before you go to bed. Create a meditating time before you go to bed. Also, make sure that you get in exercise, not too much sugar, a healthy diet. Once again, all the things we know already. Um,
Right.
we just have to repeat. But it is those type of things that is helping to better your sleep. We all know
Well,
better. We just do better.
okay. How do people get hold of you? What's your website address or?
Our website is goodnight.co.za. They can contact us there. There's a form that they can fill in. We also have a Facebook page and Instagram page where we share a lot of free content, blogs, and information, so people can go have a look at that. We also have some great articles. I recently shared about Ramadan and breastfeeding during this time, as well as improving your child's sleep during this time, this beautiful time of Ramadan.
Oh, thank you so very much. Lovely talking with you, and you go well. Thanks once again, Yolanda Becker.
Thank you,
Uh,
Julie, for having me. I appreciate it.
Loved having you on the
Bye.
show. Thank you. Bye bye. It is exactly 11:37, and that, of course, was Yolandi Becker. She is a good night sleep consultant. If you're having problems sleeping, then that's the person you need to get hold of. Obviously, she has indicated that she specializes in children and their sleep problems or sleep habits. She is your go-to lady, Yolandi Becker, and you can visit the Instagram pages, Facebook, and also their website. Like I've said, good night sleep consultant is what they call themselves. 11:38, and before we go for our ad break, I need to share some information with you, and that is Sentio. They are an ethically based asset manager that is focused on delivering superior risk adjusted returns for their clients, regardless of market conditions. For more info on their Sharia investment products, visit their website, which is www.sentio-capital.com, and start saving towards your investment goals today. Sentio Capital Management, invest for good. Sentio Capital Management is an authorized financial services provider.